conversation that we need to have. Yeah, so we're going to also be talking about enforcement and reporting mechanisms for GBV offenses. We're going to be talking about the challenges faced with regards to the legal responses. We're also going to be talking about the role the civil society and legal aid play in responding to GBV. And finally, we're going to be giving recommendations and area of improvement. So first of all, I want us to look at the definition of gender-based violence under the United Nations. I'm sure you guys have extensively learned of what's the general definition of GBV. But before we go into the presentation proper, I'd like us to look at how the United Nations defines gender-based violence. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, it defines GBV as any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will and that is based on socially ascribed differences between male and females, in bracket gender. So now we've looked at the United Nations definition. I want to talk about one notable case under this particular definition, and that is the case of AT versus Hungary in 2025. This case is a landmark gender-based case decided by the United Nations, that is the CEDAW Committee, under the optional protocol of the CEDAW Convention. And the fact of this case is that AT is a lady who was a victim of domestic violence in Hungary. She suffered years of abuse by her partner, that is her husband, whom she had 2 children with. And despite reporting this case to the police, that's the Hungarian authorities, they failed to provide effective protection for her, such as removing the abuser from the home or offering adequate restraining orders. AT remained at risk and the state did not provide any access to shelter or social support. The CEDAW committee found that Hungary failed to act with due diligence to prevent violence against AT. And they also found that the state failure to protect her constituted gender-based discrimination, which is also a gender-based form of gender-based violence. And they also stated that it violated Articles 2A, C, and F and 5A of the CEDAW Convention. The significance of this case is that it is the first time the CEDAW Committee held a country accountable for failing to protect a woman from domestic violence. And it also clarified that states are responsible not only for direct acts of violence, but also for failures to prevent and respond to such violence by private individuals. It further emphasized that domestic violence is a human rights issue, not just a private family matter. The reason why I brought up this case is because a lot of us think that gender-based violence is a private issue, especially when it comes to intimate partner violence. But no, it's a gender-based violence issue. It's a general issue that affects human rights. So that is why I brought up this United Nations definition on human rights, on gender-based violence. So now let's go into the Nigerian context. And under the Nigerian context, we have the VAP Act. The reason why I'm bringing the VAP Act, talking about the VAP Act now, is because it is the only act that has kind of given a definition, a context, a contextual legal explanation of GBV. And it refers to GBV. It doesn't actually state the word GBV, but it refers to it as any act that causes or is likely to cause physical, sexual, psychological, or economic harm or suffering to women or men, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. Now, let's look at the legal frameworks that are addressing GBV in Nigeria. We cannot talk about legal frameworks without talking about the Constitution, because Constitution is the ground norm, is the main law that governs any offense at all committed in Nigeria, and that is the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution. We also have statutory laws like the Criminal Code Act, the Penal Code Act, the VAP Act that I just mentioned earlier. Then you have the Child Rights Act, and you have NAPTIP Act. It's not actually called NAPTIP Act, but I shortened it because of space. It's called Trafficking Against Persons and Prohibition Act. So now we're going to look at that later. Then you have international treaties and convention like the CEDAW and Kyoto Protocol. I just talked about a case of the CEDAW, I want to actually give a case for this CEDAW. I want to explain something here in this CEDAW. So now let me give one particular case. There's this case of Weller versus the Attorney General of the Federation, which was decided in 2015. And the background of this case is that in 2011, several women were unlawfully arrested and harassed by the police in Lagos for being found in public places like bars and nightclubs at night without male companions. The NGO, which is the Women Empowerment and Legal Aid, challenged this discriminatory practice in courts. The legal issue that arose was whether arresting women solely for being unaccompanied at night violates their constitutional rights to freedom from discrimination under Section 42 of the 1999 Constitution. The court ruled that the Federal High Court ruled in favor of the women, declaring the police's action discriminatory and unconstitutional. It also upheld that such arrests based on gender amounted to gender-based violence and a violation of their fundamental human rights. The significance of this case is that it reinforced that profiling women based on gender is illegal. And it also affirmed that Section 42, which talks about freedom from discrimination, is enforceable in courts. And it highlighted that the directive principles of state policy like gender equality are not enforceable unless linked to fundamental human rights under Chapter 2. So now, let's go to, another legal framework here is the case laws. We're going to talk on the case laws as well. It's part of the legal framework. Now let's go to the Constitution. What does the Constitution say about gender-based violence? The Nigerian Constitution does not specifically use the term GBV, that is gender-based violence, but it provides a legal foundation for protecting citizens from all forms of violence and discrimination, including gender-based violence, through human rights provision. Now, the key section under the 1999 Constitution that relates to GBV are Section 17, which talks about social order and equal opportunity. However, the reason why I brought up this Weller case is because I want to expatiate more on this particular section. You see this section, Section 17, it's a non-justiciable section. If you bring a case, what it means is that if you bring a case under this section, solely on this section, that case will not fly in court. It will not be heard in court. So for you to bring any matter that falls under social order and equal opportunity, you have to link it to Section 42 under the Constitution so that it can be heard in court, so that it can be justiciable in court. So any matter you're bringing, and most of the gender-based violence matters fall under this social order and equal opportunity, that section, the directive principle of state policies. It falls under that particular section in the Constitution. So any case you're bringing, you must tie it to the Section 42, you must tie it to a law, a particular not necessarily Section 42, but you must tie it to a law that can be heard in court, that can be justiciable in court. So now let's look at Section 33 of the Constitution, which talks about right to life. Right to life is a right that has been given to you by the Constitution, and if your right to life is being violated, it constitutes a GBV issue. Also, we have right to dignity of human persons. Also, if your right to dignity is affected or trampled upon, it constitutes a GBV issue. Also, further, you have the right to freedom from discrimination, and that is where this Weller case that I talked about falls under. So you see, if this Weller, the NGO, had brought the issue that these ladies were profiled by the police, under one of the sections in the directive principle of state policy, it will not fly. But they were smart enough to tie it to section 42, which falls under right to freedom from discrimination, because they were discriminated against. And because of that, the court heard their case. Now, let's go to section 42 of the 1999 Constitution. I brought up all this limitation because I want you to understand that, like I said, for the fundamental objective and directive principle of state policy, one of the limitations is that if you do not tie those cases that falls under GBV with this particular section or any other section that is justiciable, it will not fly in court. Now, the general limitation for the Constitution is that while the Constitution provides this protection, it does not directly define or address gender-based violence. This is why other laws like the VAP Act, the Child Rights Act, and state-level domestic violence laws are essential for addressing GBV in practical terms. Now, let's look at the statutory laws that govern GBV. We have the Criminal Code Act. The Criminal Code Act is only applicable in the southern states. It doesn't apply anywhere else. It doesn't apply in the north, only in the southern states. And it does not explicitly define GBV, but several acts that constitute GBV are criminalized under various sections. GBV includes, like we said, like you already know, it includes sexual, physical, emotional, psychological, economic abuse, and the likes of them. And many of these are covered under various offenses in this particular act. Some of the notable acts, some of the notable sections I brought out is the sections that deal with physical violence, which is section 335 that talks about grievous harm. It constitutes the act states that it constitutes a felony and it's 7 years imprisonment if you're found guilty. You also have section 351, which is assault, and it's a misdemeanor for 1 year imprisonment if you're found guilty. You have assault occasioning harm, which is also a felony, 3 years imprisonment. You have abduction, which is also a felony and is 7 years imprisonment. You have abduction of girls under 16, which is seen as a misdemeanor and 2 years imprisonment. This particular section, I do not agree with it. I do not know why that is the case, because abduction of girls under 16 is they are still little. They do not even have a mind of their own. So why is it a misdemeanor? So it's a particular section that has been contested a lot in the courts. But yeah, there are other sections that can fall under. Then you have kidnapping, which falls under section 364. And if you're found guilty, it's a felony and 10 years imprisonment. Then you have sexual violence. The sections that deal with sexual violence under the Criminal Code Act are sections like unlawful carnal knowledge of a girl under 13, which is a felony, life imprisonment. You have unlawful carnal knowledge of a girl under 16, a misdemeanor, 2 years imprisonment. It's also part of the thing I was talking about based on the physical violence. Then you have rape. Rape was defined under section 357 as an unlawful carnal knowledge of a woman or girl with her consent. So you see, if you bring a matter under this section 218, unlawful carnal knowledge of a girl, and it amounts to a misdemeanor, you can come under this particular section, which is section 357, and you will get because the punishment for rape is life imprisonment. You're going to get life imprisonment, because if you come under the other section, you will only get 2 years imprisonment. And you have attempted rape, which is a felony and is 14 years imprisonment. You have indecent assault on a female, which is a misdemeanor and is 2 years imprisonment. Then you have cases like psychological and emotional abuse. The Criminal Code does not explicitly criminalize emotional or physical psychological abuse. However, threatening behavior may be prosecuted under this act. You have section 86, which talks about threatening violence, which if you're found guilty, it's a misdemeanor and is a 1 year imprisonment. And if committed at night, it's a felony and it's 3 years imprisonment. Then you have domestic violence. The Criminal Code also does not specifically mention domestic violence, but cases like, offenses like assault or harm against the spouse or partner is still criminal under general assault provisions. And there is no immunity if a spouse is found guilty of this. Now let's look at penal code. The Penal Code is also one of the statutory laws, and it's only applicable in the northern part of Nigeria. It does not it does not explicitly mention the term or the term gender-based violence as a category, but it contains provisions that criminalize several acts. Hello? Hello?
Okay.
Please, can you hear me?
Hi, we can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I don't know what happened. They just went off. So let me share my screen. Let me go back and share my screen so that we can continue. Please, can you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, all right. So let's go ahead. Sorry for the break in transmission. So now I was talking about penal code. We have cases like assault, rape, and sexual offenses, kidnapping, abduction, and forced marriage, and criminal intimidation and threat, which also the penal code criminalizes. I didn't necessarily put the sections because it was just a lot, so but I will talk about it under this one. So cases like assault, including domestic violence, we have section 263, which criminalizes causing hurt by use of force. And this includes slapping, beating, or physical violence generally, and it's a 1 year imprisonment, fine, or both. We have aggravated assault, which is punished more severely, especially when dangerous weapons are involved, and it's a 3 year imprisonment, fine, or both. Then we have assault on woman, assault on a woman who is also punished more severely. So if the assault is on a woman, it is punished more severely, and it's especially when criminal force is used, and it's 3 years imprisonment, fine, or both. So I want to say something about this particular code. This penal code law, it does not necessarily cover men who are abused. It only focuses mostly on women who are abused. So it's an ongoing debate and conversation that a lot of people are having, that that's why the VAP Act came into play anyway, because most of these acts, they do not recognize the female on male, or when a man is being the one abused. It mostly recognizes when a woman is being abused, or domestic violence or whatever it is committed upon her. So that's what I want to say here. Then we have rape and sexual offenses. Section 282 defines rape as a man having sexual intercourse with a woman without her consent. This provision is, like I said earlier, this provision is limited to male on female rape and does not recognize marital rape. You see, so like I said, like the assault too, it's only recognized, this particular one recognizes only male on female rape. It doesn't recognize when a woman rapes a man, when a man is being raped. And of course, we know that men too are being raped. So that is a limitation for this particular section code, this particular law. So, and it doesn't recognize marital rape like the VAP Act does. Then punishment for rape is life imprisonment and fine. You pay both. You do life imprisonment and you also pay fine. Then you have acts of gross indecency without consent by use of force or threats, which is 7 years imprisonment and fine. Then you have cases of kidnapping, abduction, and forced labor. Section 271 talks about kidnapping by enticing male under 14 and female under 16 years, which is a 10 year imprisonment and fine. Then you also have kidnapping of a girl under 18 for the purpose of illicit intercourse, which is sexual intercourse, and it's 10 years and hello? Hello?
Hi.
Sorry, I don't know why it keeps tripping off. We'll just be managing it like that. Okay, but you can hear me, right? You guys can hear
Yes,
me.
ma'am.
Okay, all right, let's
Yes.
continue. We're not going to allow this network to shame us at all. So let's continue. So we have forced labor, which is 1 year imprisonment and fine. I will share the slides if you're interested at the end, because I'm just trying to rush it. Some of these things, we don't need to really talk much on it because they're just sections that you can go read more on. So then the limitations of the penal code regarding GBV, like I said, it does not criminalize marital rape. It only recognizes male on, I didn't state that here, but it recognizes only male on female rape. It does not recognize female on male rape. It does not address emotional or psychological abuse, economic abuse, or stalking. It lacks general gender neutral language. So it doesn't use languages that are gender neutral. It mostly talks, that's why you hear things like male on female rape and all of that. Then it also is often based on outdated colonial era standard because, of course, why not? It was enacted in 1960. So obviously, you know, so we have the VAC Act, and this is where I want to focus on because the VAC Act is the main law that is guiding or governing gender-based violence right now in Nigeria. So this is the act that whenever you have any gender-based violence case, you come under this particular act and you definitely get redress. So the VAC Act is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. It was enacted in 2015 and it's called the VAP Act. It's a significant Nigerian law that was enacted to address various forms of violence, particularly GBV, and to provide effective remedies and protection for victims. The VAP Act is considered a landmark federal legislation because it is the first comprehensive legal framework on GBV. It is also the first federal law to clearly define and criminalize rape, domestic violence, and other forms of gender-based violence. It introduced progressive provision aligned with global human rights standards. It created a national sex offenders register. This is the only law that has created that. I think Lagos State is following right now, but either Lagos State was done before or this, I'm not so sure, but I think Lagos State is also doing that. Then it empowered survivors with access to justice and support services. Most of these laws that we had read about, I mean, the statutory laws that we had read about, you could see that they only talk about the punishment for offenders. But you don't hear anything about, oh, how do we manage the survivors? How do we handle the survivors? How do we take care of them? It doesn't talk about that. So those are the limitations that those other acts have. But this particular one empowers survivors with access to justice and support services because why not? They are survivors. We should support them, right? So this VAP Act does that. Then it became a model law that many Nigerian states have since adopted and domesticated. Like I said, that is the major law governing GBV cases right now. So it's just about, I think, 2 or 3 states that have not domesticated it, but I think 34 out of the 36 states have domesticated it, and you will see why those states have not. Okay, now what are the key features of the VAP Act? It expands the definition of GBV. Like I said earlier, the Act expands the definition of violence beyond physical abuse and to include emotional, verbal, psychological, sexual rape, harassment, and the likes of that. It also talks about harmful traditional practices like FGM, female genital mutilation. Then it also talks about economic abuse, political violence, the likes of it. Then another key feature of this act is that it provides protection orders, court orders to prevent further abuse. So if you notice the other statutory laws that I mentioned, they don't provide any protection, or you don't hear anything like protection order. But this particular act provides protection order, like restraining orders and all of that to, prevent further abuse. Then you have rights to medical and psychological support. Like I said, the other ones do not do this, but this particular one gives you the opportunity to get psychological support, because of course we know GBV causes a lot of emotional and mental, issues like depression and the likes of that. So this particular act makes provisions for that. Then compensation to victims, like by perpetrators. Of course, like the other acts, they don't only talk about punishment, but this one makes sure that the victims are or the survivors are compensated by the perpetrators themselves. Then you have access to shelter and counseling. The other ones too do not talk about that, but this particular one talks about access to shelter and counseling. Then thirdly, it criminalizes specific acts like rape, like we said earlier, rape, physical injury, female genital mutilation, economic abuse, forced isolation or ostracization, emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse, harmful widowhood practices, spouse or child abandonment, spousal battery, harmful traditional practices, political violence, and incest. So there are lots of them. I just had to, summarize it to this because of space. Then we have, it also provides for stiffer penalties. Yeah, penalties of offenders are more stringent under this act. Like rape, it gives you life imprisonment, but the minimum that you can get is 12 years for first-time offenders. So, and FGM also, it gives 4 years imprisonment or fine or both. Then you have establishment of sexual offenders register, like I mentioned earlier. The act provides for the creation of a national sex offenders register. So if you commit a sexual offense, your name will be published in the offenders register. The whole public and the world will get to know that you are a sexual offender. That's what this register is all about. Excuse me. Sorry, just a second. Let me drink water. Thank you. So we also have support for victims, which is access to shelters for abused persons, rights to rehabilitation. Sometimes when you're being abused, you need to be placed in a place where you can be rehabilitated. It can have a very serious mental toll on you, so you need rehabilitation. Then you have provision of medical care and legal assistance, of course. So now, we have defined GBV under the VAP Act earlier, so we don't need to talk about that now, but let's understand it very well. Because the reason why I want to define it again is for us to understand how this act has covered anything gender-based violence. Like it's a very good law that is really helping a lot of people that are dealing with GBV right now. So, like I said earlier, it's an act. It defines GBV as an act or threat of violence, which is physical, sexual, verbal, psychological, emotional, and the likes of it, committed against the person that results in or is likely to result in harm, suffering, or deprivation, and that may be rooted in unequal power relations or gender norms. So that's how it defines GBV. Now, I put this in a table form so that you can really understand it. So some of the penalties under the VAP Act are this, like rape, it gives life imprisonment, minimum of 12 for first-time offenders. You have personal injury, which is covered under Section 2, up to 5 years imprisonment, fine or fine not exceeding 100,000 naira. You have FGM, 4 years imprisonment, fine, or 200K. We have economic abuse, up to 5 years imprisonment. We have forced isolation. We have all of this. I don't want to have to go state them because they're already here. So I'll send the slides to you guys. Then we have the protective order under the VAP Act, and these orders are the protection order. It is a court order prohibiting an abuser from contacting, threatening, or harming the victim. So once this order is given, the offender, the person, or the abuser, the person who is abusing you, cannot contact you. It's more like a restraining order, but it's called a protection order because they also have the restraining order. So they cannot contact you, they cannot threaten you, they cannot harm you, they can't even come close to you at all. But that's where the restraining order comes in. And you have the interim protection order, which is an emergency temporary order that is issued before the full hearing of the case. So let's say an example is maybe somebody is threatening to kill you and you go to court to tell them that, oh, this is the situation, this person wants to kill me. They will quickly give you this order so that it will prevent, before the matter is even being taken to court, so that the person cannot come close to you, the person cannot have any access to you at all. Then you have restraining order, which is an order restricting the abuser from being near your area at all, wherever, if it's your residence, your workplace, wherever it is at all that you will be found. This order is given so that that abuser cannot even come close to you at all. Then we have the state level implementation of the VAP Act. I mentioned this earlier. As of 2025, 34 states have domesticated the act, aside Lagos and Kano. They are the only two states that have not domesticated it. And this is because Lagos State already has a GBV law, which they've been using before VAP Act came into play anyway. So they don't really need to domesticate it because it's functioning very well. Then for Kano, to be honest, I really don't know why Kano has not domesticated it, but I would think it's mostly because of maybe their own cultural and traditional, laws and rules that governs the state. I don't know. I'm just thinking. Then one of the most groundbreaking provision of the VAP Act is that it recognizes and criminalizes spousal rape. Spousal rape. There are lots of deliberation on this, on whether there should be anything like spousal rape. That can your husband rape you as a wife, or can your wife rape you as a husband? But this is very, very possible because there are situations where you and your husband are not in good terms, and before you know it, your husband wants to come home and now sleep with you. And of course, you guys are not in good terms. You're not in that mental space for that, right, at that point in time. But yet he will now end up forcing himself on you. That is spousal rape because obviously you didn't give your consent for that act to be done. So that's a major legal and cultural shift in Nigeria. And of course, they are still contesting this in court. There are still many people that are opposing this particular situation, but it is under the law. So if you're found wanting, you'll be penalized. It is a significant departure from the criminal. The VAP Act is a significant departure from the criminal and penal code, and that did not acknowledge the possibility of rape within marriage. So like I said earlier, the criminal and penal code did not mention anything about spousal rape, but this did. So now we are done with the VAP Act. Now let's go to the Child Rights Act. The Child Rights Act was enacted in 2003 and is a comprehensive legislation in Nigeria that protects the rights and welfare of children. It aligns with the United Nations on the rights of the child. It addresses gender-based violence against children through various provisions, although it does not use the term GBV like others. The law focuses on protecting children from abuse, exploitation, and all forms of violence, which includes gender-specific harms. Then the key provisions of this particular act is that you have the right to freedom from discrimination, right to dignity of the child, right to parental care, protection, maintenance. You have the right of the unborn child to protection against harm, prohibition of child marriage, prohibition of child brothel, prohibition of exploitative labor. All these people that used to make children go and sell things, hawk, and all of that. It is prohibited under this act. So if you're found wanting, asking a child to go and hawk or sell or beg or prostitute, this act will follow you. Then you have section 30, which talks about child pornography. You see, in this particular section, I don't like to use the word child pornography because pornography in its word, the word itself, pornography, depicts when two people come together in agreement to have sexual intercourse and film it to the world for the world to see. But when you say child pornography, it's like the child is actually consenting to that. No, it does not. The child does not consent to that. But, well, that's the name that they've called it for now. So we're going to stick with that. But I feel that name should be changed because obviously the child cannot give consent to such. Then you have unlawful sexual intercourse, to the child. You have also child pornography also falls on that. So if you're having unlawful sexual intercourse with the child, it falls under this particular child pornography falls under this particular section. Then you have prohibition of recruitment into the armed force, like what these Boko Haram people are doing now, recruiting small children into of course, it's not the armed forces, but they are recruiting children to go and fight do Boko Haram, join Boko Haram and fight and all of that, handle arms and all of that. So that's very wrong. That falls under this. They are prohibited from doing that. Then you have the domestication of the Child Rights Act in Nigeria. So the Child Rights Act has been domesticated in Nigeria, but not uniformly across all 36 states. So right now, as of 2025, 33 out of 36 states have domesticated the act. 3 states like Zamfara, Kano, and Bauchi have not domesticated the law yet. I don't know, Kano. I don't know why they don't like domesticating. But anyway, this is largely due to religious and cultural reasons, particularly in states governed by Sharia law. So I guess that's the reason. In states where the act is not domesticated, children are not fully, so that is the limitation now. If you don't domesticate this, children are not fully protected from its provisions. You get, then you have issues as child marriage, sexual abuse, and other forms of gender-based violence that may continue to happen because this has not been domesticated. Then enforcement mechanisms like family court and specific child protection services may be lacking just because they've not domesticated. So that's it for the Child Rights Act. Now let's go to the NAPTIP Act. We are still under the statutory laws, but this is particularly the NAPTIP Act. I call it the NAPTIP Act, but that's not what it's called. It's called the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act 2015. It was enacted in 2015. It is a Nigerian federal law that primarily addresses human trafficking, but it also intersects with issues of gender-based violence in several key ways. So the act was enacted to provide comprehensive legal and institutional framework for the prohibition, prevention, detection, prosecution, and punishment of human trafficking. It protects and assists victims, especially women and children who are most vulnerable, and it establishes and empowers the national, as the NAPTIP. It empowers and establishes the NAPTIP. So NAPTIP is the one that deals with any trafficking case. The Act also empowers NAPTIP to operate shelter for rescued victims and provide counseling, medical care, and rehabilitation services, work with law enforcement and NGOs to protect vulnerable groups, especially women and girls. Now, let me speak a little bit about a NAPTIP case that I'm currently handling. This case is about a 5-year-old girl who was raped by her father. Her mother contacted me to tell me that, oh, madam, this is the situation. My husband raped my 5-year-old daughter. And yes, however, they've sent the case they've gone to NAPTIP. NAPTIP is currently handling the case of the girl. But the woman is now even complaining further that the man is after her life. He wants to, of course, he's not happy that she reported him to NAPTIP. So according to her, he's after her life. He wants to kill her. But the reason why I even want to talk about this case is because, you see, NAPTIP, they are one of the things they are empowered to do is to operate shelters for rescued victims. The woman complained heavily to me how uninhabitable NAPTIP shelter is right now. Her child is only 5 years old, but she's always having to treat the child of one disease or the other because the NAPTIP shelter is oversaturated. There are so many people there right now. So because of that, the survivors are not even being well taken care of. You see, and normally I would expect that this kind of situation, you are not only because you are supposed to help victims, right? The mother here in this situation is also a victim of the husband because now the husband is trying to kill her or whatever it is. And now NAPTIP is saying that they cannot even protect the mother because it only protects those that were actually involved in the particular, those that were victims of the particular crime that was committed. Personally, I feel like the government should do something about this. They should find a way to, have more shelters, number one, and also give room for or have room for women too or parents too who are being abused. No, well, maybe the parents are not being abused, but their children are being abused. So they are also being abused invariably. So they should also have opportunity for these parents to be protected. But no, they don't protect the mom. Now the girl, the 5-year-old girl, is the only one in the shelter, in the NAPTIP shelter, and she's dealing with a lot of diseases and all that. She's not even being fed well. She's not being well taken care of. But you also cannot blame NAPTIP because they don't have the financial wherewithal to do that. So that's the case I'm handling right now. We're trying to see how we can help this woman and also help the girl that is currently at the NAPTIP shelter. I've currently gotten an NGO that I want to transfer the girl to because but the problem is that NAPTIP is saying they are handling the case because they are taking the matter to court. So they say I cannot take the girl out of their custody because they've already filed the matter in court and court is currently on break. So we have to wait till when court resumes before, it's just messy. So that's the case right now that I'm handling on this NAPTIP issue. Then offenses under the Act attract severe penalties ranging from 5 years imprisonment, 5 years to life imprisonment, depending on the nature and gravity of the crime. For example, trafficking for sexual exploitation is 7 years imprisonment and fine of 1 million naira. Then you have trafficking of children, which is not less than 10 years imprisonment and fine of 1 million naira. Then now, case laws are also part of the Nigerian legal frameworks because case laws are laws that are being, the judgment of the court end up becoming laws because they become landmark cases that people use to handle other cases. So I just gave a summary of some of the cases, notable case laws that relates to GBV. And one of them is the Mary Sunday versus Nigerian ECOWAS case. The fact of the case is that Mary was severely assaulted and permanently disfigured by her fiancé, a police officer in Lagos in 2012. And Nigerian authorities failed to investigate or prosecute the perpetrator. The ECOWAS court held Nigeria liable for failing to protect Mary's rights under the international law. It found out that Nigeria violated her right to access justice, dignity, and freedom from inhuman treatment. So that's the notable case of Mary Sunday against Nigeria. Another ECOWAS court case is Blessing Ebere versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The victim of it, Blessing Ebere is a victim of trafficking and sexual exploitation, which was brought, the victim of trafficking and sexual exploitation brought a case against Nigeria for failing to protect her rights and prosecute the traffickers. Yeah. So the judgment of the court was that the ECOWAS court ruled in her favor and found Nigeria in breach of regional and international obligations to prevent trafficking and protect victims. Then you have the case of Obuagu versus the state. It's a 2022 case, Court of Appeal case. The court held the conviction of the appellants for rape under the VAP Act. The case is important because it clarified an expanded definition of rape under Section 1 of the Act, which includes non-penal penetration and affirms lack of consent in the central issue. Like the other acts, criminal and penal code, they only recognize penal penetration, but this VAP Act recognizes non-penal penetration, like when the act was, maybe the rape was done in the mouth. Anal, I don't know what they call the mouth one and the anal one, the one in the anus. So it recognizes all of that. You also have the Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Afolabi. It's an unreported federal high court case. And the summary of the case was that the defendant was convicted for domestic violence, including physical assault and emotional abuse under the VAP Act. The key section invoked was Section 2, emotional abuse, spousal battery, and intimidation. Then also we have the case of DPP versus Olaleye. It's an unreported 2022 case. I don't know, most of us will know this case. That Chrisland school case like that, it happened in 2022. So the fact was that it involved allegation of child sexual abuse involving minors. While Lagos State does not apply the VAP Act, this case drew national attention to GBV against minors and helped fuel state-by-state adoption of the VAP Act. But Lagos State have their own domestic abuse law that they handle. Then you have, I'm sure we also know this Baba Ijesha case. It was a popular case. Baba Ijesha was a Nollywood is a Nollywood actor that was convicted for sexually assaulted a minor. I remember that time, what's her name? I've forgotten that actress. She came and was making a lot of noise on internet that time. That was how they were able to get the guy, and the girl recorded the whole incident that happened. So this is the case. And though Lagos State has its own criminal law of Lagos State, the public nature of the case increased awareness. Because it was a public case, it increased awareness of child sexual violence laws. Though not under the VAP Act, the case triggered advocacy for stricter enforcement of GBV laws and state domestication of the VAP Act. Then now I want to talk about the one that is very dear to me, which is online gender-based violence. Online gender-based violence is something that is ongoing right now. It's something that is happening every single day. In fact, even as I am talking, it is happening. We are in the digital age. Everybody has access to phones and internet. So they do anything and do anyhow without realizing the offenses that they are committing. So the online gender-based violence refers to acts of gender-based harm that are committed, facilitated, or amplified through digital technology such as the internet, social media platform, messaging apps, and other online spaces. It is a serious and growing form of violence, particularly affecting women, girls, the LGBTQ community, and marginalized groups. Some of the forms of online gender-based violence are cyber stalking. When you're cases of people online, they'll just be harassing you, stalking you unnecessarily. That is cyber stalking, persistent and unwanted surveillance or harassment online. Then you have non-consensual sharing of intimate images, also called revenge porn. You hear a lot of revenge porn happening online. You hear today that they release this person's pornography picture, they release that one's pornography picture. That is also an offense under the Cybercrime Act. So it forms an online gender-based violence. Then you have online sexual harassment. People solicit for sexual images and messages and threats. They all form online sexual, it's part of sexual harassment. Sometimes you get messages of men sending you for, I don't know if some of the women have experienced it. Even personally, I've experienced it. I'll get messages from useless men sending me messages, sending me their pictures, their naked pictures, asking me for whatever it is that they want. As some of them will even go ahead to ask me for my own pictures, to send my own picture. Like you can imagine. So that is online sexual harassment. You also have doxing. Doxing is publishing someone's personal information with malicious consent, without their consent, and with malicious intent. So you see situations where people publish people's house address, phone number. There are cases where maybe all this thing that is happening right now online, when a Nigerian is dating a foreigner or someone from another country, and maybe they end up breaking up, Nigerians will go and flood the person's social media page and start sending them messages. Sometimes if you have the person's phone number, they will even start sending their phone number for other people to, or their page for other people to start insulting them and saying all sorts of things. That is doxing, and it forms part of online gender-based violence. Then you have impersonation, which is creating fake this one is happening a lot. Even I've seen my own profile, my own picture on someone's profile before. Creating fake profile to damage someone's reputation or lure others. It happens a lot. Sometimes you see two, or in fact, sometimes you even see 10, maybe all these people that are doing business online, you see like 10 or 11, like so many of their pages recreated by other people. That is impersonation. Just because they want to lure people to send money into their accounts, committing fraud and all of that. Then you have cyberbullying and trolling, which is targeted, repetitive abuse aimed at humiliating or intimidating. And if you people are aware of the Yula Edochie and Judy Austin's case that is going on the internet, now everybody's aware of it, just because fine, he did the wrong thing by going ahead to marry somebody while he was still legally married to his wife. But that is not enough for you to go and be trolling him and his new wife and all of that. Sometimes they'll be trolling them. Even now with the invention of AI, people will go and be doing a lot of AI of Judy Austin or Yul Edochie doing doing nasty things. It's so sad, but that's what's obtainable right now. So, and that constitutes cyberbullying and trolling. Then you have hate speech, which is gendered slurs, because you're a woman, they insult you. Those, what do they call it? Body shaming. Sometimes they can body shame you because you are fat or because you are, maybe to them, you are not beautiful. They start body shaming you and, face shaming you and beauty shaming, whatever it is that they call the shaming. That falls under hate speech, threats and demeaning language aimed at silencing or dividing. Some people even end up committing suicide. I see a lot of this happening a lot because they cannot handle the emotional torture that they have to deal with because of this hate speech. They end up committing suicide. It happens a lot, which is so sad. Then you have deep fakes and manipulated content. Like I said, using AI editing to create fake sexual. In fact, the one that is killing me right now is the one that I heard that children, in fact, they said we should even stop posting our children online because they will carry your child's face and go and put it on a person that is having sexual intercourse with another person. Just imagine. This is happening a lot and it's so sad. It's so heartbreaking. Now you cannot even post your child's picture online because you're afraid that your child can be used as a meme or a sexual image, So it's a lot. It's a lot, So the impact of online gender-based violence is, it causes physical harm, of course. You have a psychological harm. I mean, you have anxiety, depression, PTSD, and even suicidal ideation. In fact, it causes death sometimes because people end up committing suicide. They kill themselves because of this. Not necessarily. So it doesn't even end at suicidal ideation. It doesn't end at just having the suicide thoughts. Some of them go ahead to end up committing suicide. Then you have reputational damage, you spoil the reputation of the other person that you are, doing all of that to, especially in conservative society. Then you have loss of opportunities. Victims may end up withdrawing from online platform, limiting personal, like the Judy Austin case now, because of the situation on ground now. There is a perception that she doesn't get gigs, she doesn't get influencing gigs again because of this situation. That's what happens because now you don't get opportunities because of the kind of cyber stalking you've been subjected to, Then you have the silencing effect. Many women and girls end up self-censoring or avoid public discourse online because, of course, they are afraid of talking or doing anything online because they are afraid of being, stalked or abused or whatever it is online. You get, so that's something that happens too. It's part of online GBV. Then legal protection in Nigeria under the Violence VAP Act, and we have the Cyber Crimes Act as well. There are laws and provisions that may be used to prosecute perpetrators of OGBV, that's online gender-based violence, such as all those things I mentioned. I just brought up, just summarize some of them. You also have racist and xenophobic offenses, which falls under Section 26 of the Cyber Crimes Act. So this one, I recently attended an event, and in that event, it's a seminar, and in that seminar, they are trying to pass a bill called the Online Harms Protection Bill, the OHP bill. And the main aim of this bill is to make provisions for an online reporting system, also known as online police, where offenses committed on the internet can easily be reported to and swiftly handled. So we are currently working on a part of the people that are, writing that bill so that we can see how we can pass the bill, pass it into law so that it can become a law, so that if there are cases like this happening on the internet space, you can easily find a way to report it. Although some online like Amazon and even Meta, that's Facebook, WhatsApp, and the likes of them, they have opportunities where you can go and report if you are being abused online. They have opportunities where you can go and report those kind of abuses. But we need something that can be easily done and also swiftly handled. So we are working on that right now. So in cases of OGBV, how do you respond? You document the evidence, take screenshots, save messages, URLs, and metadata. Then you report to the platform. Most social media sites, like I said, most social media sites allow you to report abuse. So you have Meta, you have Amazon, you have, the likes of them. Then seek help, seek legal help. Once you are dealing with this kind of situation, go and report to the National Human Rights Commission or consult a lawyer. They will help you to, handle this matter. Then you reach out to NGOs for emotional support if you've been affected emotionally. Maybe you're contemplating suicide or whatever. Reach out to NGOs that are helping, that are assisting to give emotional support. Like my NGO is one of those NGOs that we are trying to see how we can help, people deal with these issues like this. Then prevention and education. We are also expecting that people will promote digital literacy and online safety, especially for girls and women, advocate for stronger tech platform accountability and gender-sensitive laws, foster a zero-tolerance culture to online abuse. Then, okay, yeah, so that's it that's for online GBV. So these are the things that we are advocating for. Then we have the enforcement and reporting mechanisms. We have the Nigerian police force. If you're having issues like this, you can go to the police. You can go to the family courts or special GBV courts that deal with GBV issues. You have the NAPTIP, like the case I told you about. You have the NSCDC, Civil Defense. You have Legal Aid Council of Nigeria. They are also there. They can help. You have the National Human Rights Commission. You have FIDA. I'm part of FIDA because I'm a lawyer. So by virtue of my profession, I'm part of FIDA. So it's the Women Lawyers Association of Nigeria. So yeah, you can report to us. You can report to Public Interest Law Partnership, PILP. You can you can obtain protection order under the VAP Act. So if you realize that you're being stalked or you're being abused or whatever it is, quickly go to the court to request for a protection order under the VAP Act. Then you have NGOs and GB-free response centers like Mirabel Center. They help you with emotional issues and the likes of them. Challenges in legal responses. What are the challenges? You have inadequate laws and legal frameworks. Yeah, we have some of the legal frameworks. We have laws. In fact, this I will not even say is part of a challenge. It is not a challenge because we have laws. We actually have laws. The problem is implementation. That's the problem we are having right now. It is not, we don't even need to have more laws, if you ask me. We don't need to have more laws. What we need to do is to implement. Those gaps in the legislation, yeah, okay. So in terms of gaps in legislation, we can fill them up. Outdated laws, we can throw them away. Then inconsistency with international standards, we know we should learn, we should be able to, be consistent with international standards. Then, like I said, weak implementation and enforcement. We don't need more laws. We need implementation of the laws. The courts are not even helping. Delays in justice system, corruption and bias. Lots of judges are corrupt. I'm a lawyer and I'm saying this with my full chest. Lots of lawyers are corrupt. Lots of judges are corrupt. Even lawyers, some lawyers are corrupt. So if you end up meeting the wrong one, forget it. Your case will enter voicemail. So lack of training for law enforcement. We need to train law enforcement agencies. We need to train them. A lot of them don't even know, like the police, they don't even know what to do in cases like this. They don't know. They will be looking at you. I had a case that I was handling recently of one 12-year-old girl who is dealing with domestic abuse, sexual abuse. She was raped by her elder brother. I took this girl to, I don't want to mention the hospital. I took her to a hospital. These are people who are, it's this gender-based violence response team of the hospital. But yet the doctor himself did not even know how to handle this girl's matter. He didn't even know how to calm her down, he was just talking to her in a very insensitive manner. I was the one trying to even calm him down. And in fact, at the point, started getting angry with me because I was trying to talk to him and calm him down and all of that. They're not educated at all. So we need to educate them. We need to educate them. That's what needs to be done. So that at least these things will not be occurring a lot. You have cultural and social barriers. There are some cultures that don't even allow you the opportunity to report cases like this because of shame and stigma. So you are afraid. You don't want them to say this about you. You don't want them to know this about you. Like the girl I said I'm handling her case. Her parents are trying to shut her up because it's their son that raped her, it's her brother. So they are trying to cover up the case because they don't want the family matter to go out. You can imagine. Like I said, family and community pressure. The pressure is on the girl. They don't want it to go out. You have normalization of abuse. They've normalized abuse. In fact, now there's a perception that as a wife, if you talk back at your husband should beat you. That's what they're trying to normalize. They're trying to normalize the fact that your husband can beat you as a wife if you talk back at him. What does that mean? Doesn't even make sense. You understand? Then you have limited access to justice, because of geographical barriers. Maybe you're in a different, location. You cannot access, justice in that location. You have economic constraints. Maybe you are financially down. You cannot, you don't have the financial wherewithal to handle the case. You have lack of legal awareness. A lot of people are not even aware of the legal intricacies involved in this thing. They are not aware. Some people are not aware of the laws that they have. Some people don't even know the rights they have in these laws. Some people are not aware they have these rights, so they can't even report. You have poor coordination among stakeholders. Fragmented services, inconsistent case handling, victim intimidation and retaliation. Sometimes you go and report this case, the perpetrator will end up looking for you and wanting to kill you. Like Mr. Soji explained when I was doing my own GBV course, he explained a case of one lady who was, she was, I think, being run over by a vehicle by the perpetrator just because she reported a case or something. I can't really remember the particular story, but I think he mentioned it during our time. Things like that can happen. So you are afraid, threats from perpetrators, inadequate witness protection, limited use of evidence, over-reliance on physical evidence. Courts are so reliant on physical evidence. In a case of rape, sometimes you may not even be able to get forensic evidence, but it happened. So they don't even have the facility to be able to know when a rape has occurred without physical evidence or forensic evidence. Lack of survivor-centered legal process, traumatizing legal procedures. Sometimes the cases are taking so long, you are traumatized. Inadequate support service, you're not even getting enough support. These are challenges in these legal responses. Then now, the role of the civil society and legal aid. We have prevention and awareness, support services for survivors, legal and paralegal support, advocacy and policy engagement, data collection and research, access to justice, legal representation, legal education and systemic impact. The civil society and legal aid providers often work together to ensure a holistic response to GBV. NGOs refer survivors to legal aid services. Legal aid services work within multidisciplinary teams, example with social workers and counselors. And both actors, that is the legal aid and the civil society, contribute to law reform and national action plans for GBV. Finally, recommendation. What are the recommendations that I've stated here? We need to strengthen legal frameworks, comprehensive legislation, advocate for clear, inclusive laws that define all forms of GBV. It is already happening anyway under the VAP Act. We have to harmonize laws, ensure consistency. Exactly. That is another thing, because on this law, you are like the criminal code and the penal code are saying different things. The VAP Act is saying another thing. We need to harmonize them. They need to be harmonized, There needs to be consistency so that anywhere you come, you will be able to get justice. Not this one, you come through this one, you cannot get justice. You have to come through the other one. Then you have protective orders, expand and simplify access to restraining and protection orders for survivors. Because sometimes even when you get these protection orders, you're still not protected, So it needs to be, it needs to be expanded and simplified. Then ensure access to justice, free legal aid. We need to give free legal aid. That is why there are lots of NGOs right now doing a lot of that, free legal aid. Provide survivors with access to free legal representation, especially in rural and undeserved areas. Specialized courts, establish gender-sensitive or family court that prioritize GBV cases, fast-tracking cases, implement mechanisms for speedy trials in GBV matters to reduce trauma and delays. Then mobile courts in remote areas, mobile courts can ensure survivors do not have to travel exactly. So if you have mobile courts, you don't have to now go all the way to the Federal High Court or the Magistrate Court or whatever to go and get justice. You have mobile courts at different places. So this is very important. Then capacity building for justice actors, training programs. We need to train, like this thing that this training that Mr. Soji is doing is a very good one. Now people are more aware. In fact, before I did mine, I didn't even really know much about GBV because the focus of my NGO was on intimate partner violence, domestic abuse against women and girls by intimate partners. But now getting to know about GBV, it has opened my mind. It has made me understand what it's about. And I'm now even trying to tweak my NGO to focus, to have a more expanded overview of GBV, not just relating to, restricting it to intimate partner violence. So capacity, like I said, capacity building for training justice actors, training programs, mandatory gender sensitive and trauma-informed training for police. The police especially, because they are the main people we run to whenever we have issues like this. Prosecutors, judges, even judges are not even aware of these cases. Sometimes you go to court, they're not even aware of it. You have to be the one to be telling them what it is, Social workers, these are people that needs to be trained. Accountability mechanisms, implement disciplinary actions for law enforcement or judicial officers who mishandle GBV cases. Yeah, so some of these people, like the police, now when you take cases to them, they mishandle it. Like the man I told you, the doctor that I told you was misbehaving in the hospital. If I had reported him now, it's because of the Nigeria perception, nothing may be done. So they need to be accountable. We need to have accountability mechanisms for them. Those people like that, when you report, at least you get justice. Victim-centered legal process, confidential proceedings. Sometimes proceedings are not confidential. Everybody is aware of what's happening. And that is why sometimes the victims are being threatened or even end up being killed by the perpetrators because there's no confidential proceeding. Allows for close court anonymity and protection for survivors' identity in sensitive cases, exactly. Then non-retaliation policies. So ensure survivors are protected from harassment, stigma, or reprisal after reporting, Support services integration, coordinate legal processes with psychological, medical, and shelter service. So it's not just about, oh, let's punish the offender. Also think about how to help the survivor, psychologically, medically, shelter and the likes of it. Then you have a community-based and restorative justice where appropriate. So community mediation, for non-criminal or lower level cases like economic abuse, community dispute resolution can be integrated, but only with survivor consent, of course. Then restorative justice explore survivor-led justice models that focus on healing if aligned with legal standards and survivor safety. Yeah. Then legal empowerment and public education. Know your rights campaign. We need to keep, speaking out. We need to keep educating. We need to keep advocating. We just have to. We cannot stop. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing process. It's something that needs to keep going. It's a conversation that needs to be done, be had every time. Educate the public, especially women and girls, on their legal rights and where to get help. Legal literacy clinic. Partner with local organizations to provide outreach in school, markets, and churches, mosque. Like currently, I'm also thinking of going to a school to, give talks on GBV. I'm working on that with my team. So we're trying to see how we can go and give, talk about gender-based violence in all these schools. We can start with secondary schools, especially because they are the ones growing up now. So they need to learn about these things. Mosques, churches, markets, they need to know about this because most of them are the ones susceptible to these abuses. So we need to, educate them. Monitoring and data collection. So GBV case database establish or contributes to national registries tracking GBV incidents. So there need to be a database of GBV cases. I don't even think that there is. They need to be just like how they have the sex offenders register. They need to have a database for GBV cases where you can go online and access it. And of course, the victims will be confidentially. They will not be exposed. They will not have to know the victims, but they need to know the cases. Legal outcomes and systemic patterns, feedback systems, survivors should have channels to report on their exactly. They need to have opportunity to give feedback. How was this the experience? Did they get justice? Were they the perpetrator account for their actions? Those kind of things. Then you have policy and legislative reform advocacy, advocate for criminalization of marital rape. So we are already doing that because, like I said, it's an ongoing conversation right now. Some people are saying marital rape should not be a part of it because a husband should not be able to rape his wife, but we should advocate for that because it's part of it. Increase minimum sentences for sexual assault. So instead of having minimum sentences like 7 years or this, it should make it higher. Like that one that said first time offender under the VAP Act. If you're is it VAP Act, I can't remember the act especially and particularly, but they said first time offender is VAP Act is 14 years. I don't think that should be the case because if you choose to go and commit an offense of rape, you shouldn't be getting 14 years, whether you are a first time offender or not. You shouldn't. Rape is something that it works with the mind. You used your mind, your whole body and your mind and your soul to go and commit that rape. So why should you be getting 14 years? So removal of status of limitation on rape. Yeah, so that's another issue. Sometimes there are status of limitation. So you at a certain point, you cannot even bring a case of rape or abuse if you're being raped or abused. They should remove it totally because in the US or in the Western countries, anytime they can choose to reopen a case, even though the thing happened in 100 years ago or 50 years ago, they will still reopen it and end up still, persecuting the offender. So we need to remove that statute of limitation. Inclusive definition of GBV to include LGBT. Okay, well, this one, I saw it online. It's not part of our culture, so that is out of it. Then what else? Okay, persons with disabilities. Yeah, that's true. Persons with disabilities, they deal with this a lot. Some of the time they're not even being held. They're not even being heard. I mean, elderly persons, when you even hear that they raped an elderly person, you'll be like, are you sure? You'll be like, how can they rape? It happens. So they should also include them in this gender-based violence definition. In summary, GBV is a violation of human rights. We already know that. Online gender-based violence is an aspect of GBV. A lot of people are not aware of this, but now we know. ADR, alternative dispute resolution, should be encouraged for handling gender-based violence cases. So things, ADR like mediation, although mediation, I don't really advocate for mediation because mediation means you should settle. So of course, there are certain cases where you cannot settle. Maybe in a case of rape, you cannot settle. You can't say, okay, forgive this one, forgive that. No. But maybe there are certain cases where you can say, okay, forgive the offender. You guys will come to a consensus and say, okay, I will not commit this offense again, and you move on. But I would prefer to go for arbitration under the ADR because arbitration is more like a court. When the final what's it called, the judgment of the arbitration, it's not judgment, they call it, is it ruling? Of course, I've even forgotten what they call it, but like the final agreement, what they have is binding in court, unlike mediation that is not binding in court. Arbitration is binding in court. So once you agree, whatever you agree together goes to court and the court holds it against both of you. Is binding in court. Then legal tools exist, but okay, yeah, like I said, there are lots of laws existing. We have the VAP Act, we have the Criminal Code, we have the Constitution, we have everything, but implementation is the problem. We need to advocate for implementation. That is what is needed, not more laws. Then Nigeria has made progress, but more needs to be done, obviously. Of course, we are trying. We are not where we used to be before. With the passing of the VAP Act, it shows that we are moving forward. So we're not where we used to be before, but more needs to be done, of course. We are not going to stop there. We keep going. We keep, advocating and all of that. Collection Collective action is needed from the government, civil society, legal aid, as well as private individuals. Yes. So we're not just leaving this issue to the government alone. Yeah, they need to do, the government needs to, put their hands on deck. Civil society needs, legal aid needs to, but we as private individuals, we also need to. That's where I want to hammer on. Because some of us, we see JBV happening, but because we know this person that is perpetrating the offense, because this person is our brother, is our sister, is our relative, we will not talk, we will keep quiet, So we need, as private individuals, we need to, come together and expose this thing and prosecute the people that are committing this offense. Wherever it's done, whatever it is, fine. Sometimes your life may be involved. I mean, it may get to a stage where it may affect your life. In that situation, of course, your life is more important. But in the case where your life is not being affected, please speak out. Thank you. So I have come to the end of my presentation, and I got to 8:30 on the dot. So it was exactly 1 hour, 30 minutes. So the floor is open to any questions that anybody would have. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Ivy. Thank you so much. Drop your best emoji to appreciate her. Then let's go to the question and answer section. Let's take question and answer now. So the floor is open. All right, drop a best emoji to appreciate her. Then thereafter, towards the end, somebody will give a vote of thanks on behalf of this cohort. Because you can agree with me, this is a standard lecture. Just like we are in a advanced school. Of course, our training is a professional training, is a corporate training, it's not just for anybody. And most of our trainees, about 95% are professionals. We don't usually have those entry-level people here or students. All right, thank you so much. All right, let's take questions now. The floor is open. So, Barrister Ivy, you can anchor this session as well. Let's take question on legal issues. Thank you so much. All right, thank you.
Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Questions. Thank you very much.
This presentation is really educative.
Thank you.
I have a question. My
Yeah.
question is, for a GBV case that doesn't have any forensic evidence, how is it being handled at the court?
Okay, so in cases of GBV that do not have forensic evidence, most times, like I said earlier, they rely on physical evidence. So if there's anything physical to actually show that this offense was committed, let's use rape as an example. So maybe, in the case of rape, they want the forensic evidence is that they need to see that a semen was involved in the whole penetration, or there was penetration and all of that. In a case where you cannot have forensic evidence, they will now look outside the forensic evidence and see if there are physical evidence of maybe if the girl was being raped, maybe if it's a girl that was being raped, is there a cut? Is there any physical evidence of a cut? Is there a scratch? Is there, all those kind of things? Then they will now, maybe if there's a scratch, they can take, DNA. There's DNA now, so they can take the DNA of the scratch. If there's something or a remnant on the girl's body or the boy's body, they take that and now do the DNA and find out who actually committed the crime. But in the case of Kate, in court, we call it, it's your word against my word. That's how we call it in court. It's your word against my word. So if you're able to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt that this person was actually the one that committed this offense against you, it will fly. So that's what happens. So like I said, instead of, if there's no forensic evidence, they usually work with physical evidence.
Thank you, ma. My second question is, for a case that has already been taken to court and they are for trial, and at the first trial, the parents decide to withdraw the case.
Yeah.
But regarding considering it's a rape case and there is right for life. So I don't know how that one also is being handled.
Okay, so if I understand your question clearly, if it's a case of a minor, that case cannot be withdrawn. That's one thing you have to know. Once the matter has gone to court, it remains in court. They will handle it till the end of it. They will sit to the end of it. But if it's a rape case is against the individual. So in a case where you choose to withdraw the case as an adult, they will allow you to withdraw the case. That's how it works. Because the rape case is not a criminal offense. It's a criminal offense, but it's not like an offense that is committed against the individual. So in that situation, you can choose to withdraw your case. If it's a case that was committed against the state, they will not let you withdraw it. But in a case of rape, they will let you withdraw it. But that's only if the person is not a minor. In a case of a minor, they will never let you. In fact, at the point, they will have to join you with the perpetrator, with the offender, because you are trying to stop justice from being happening. So in a case of a minor, they will not let you withdraw the case.
Well understood. Thank you, ma.
I have a question. Barrister Ajia Bilikisu, are you a lawyer?
I also have
No,
a
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a GBV activist. So sometimes we used to have a case. There is one case that we had. The girl, she's a minor, and is the stepfather that raped the girl. So the mother in our office, she was even accusing us that we collaborate with the girl just to arrest her husband. Seems he's the one provided in the family. So she was very aggressive. She was even crying. And the girl is a minor. The girl, she's a minor. So we just did what we did at the hospital level. I'm a nurse. And then the police now continue with the case.
Was the pregnancy aborted or what?
No, she's not pregnant. She's a minor, and her stepfather is the one that raped her.
Okay, but is the father,
So the mother
was he prosecuted? Was the stepfather prosecuted? Was the stepfather eventually prosecuted?
Yes, he was taken to court. So I don't know how the case ended. But in our office, she was angry. She was crying that we collaborated with the girl. We wanted to send her husband to jail.
You see, the case I'm currently handling now, there's a particular case I'm handling now, the NAPTIP case I mentioned, if you guys heard me. The case, initially, when the woman took the case to court, no, not court, to NAPTIP, when initially what she wanted was NAPTIP to just take care of the girl, to help them with the girl, put her in the shelter, take her away from the home. But she didn't want to prosecute the husband because according to her, the man is the breadwinner of the family. So she didn't want the man to not be available because she has 5 children and that girl is the last born. She's only 5 years old. So she has 4 boys. So she said if the man goes to prison, who will now take care of those 4 boys? So
that's exactly what the other one is complaining to.
Exactly. It happens a lot. We are seeing this a lot all the time. But in this kind of situation, it involves a minor. Once it involves a minor, they will never let you take that case out of the hands of the courts. Never. Because a minor is involved. If it's an adult, you can do whatever it is you want to do because, of course, you're an adult. But for a minor, no. They don't let that. So, of course, the courts will have to weigh the evidences and everything to see if you guys are according to what the woman was saying, that you are the ones that made the girl to say whatever it is that she's saying. The court will weigh all of that and now, come to their own judgment eventually.
But ma, for example, in a situation like this, if the girl is more than 18 years, maybe like 20 years, and the mother is saying that she withdraw the case, but don't you think that there is injustice? Maybe the girl doesn't want it.
But that's the situation. Once she turns 18 in Nigeria, once you turn 18 in Nigeria, you're an adult. So you have the opportunity to make your decisions by yourself. So if your parents say you shouldn't and you choose to follow what your parents is saying, then the court has the court cannot force you to handle your own matter. You understand? So that's the sad part.
I have a question. In the case of this minor who have been assaulted by their stepfather or their dad, If the mother says he doesn't want to prosecute the man, so the case will die there. Is that what you're
Not
saying?
die there because the girl is a minor, so it will not die. They will, like now, like I said, NAPTIP is going on with prosecuting the man right now because it's a minor that is involved. The girl is only 5 years old, so the woman, even though the woman says she doesn't want to go ahead to
The woman
prosecute.
says she doesn't want it to be prosecuted. So what?
Yes,
So the NAPTIP can actually go ahead even against the
yes,
country of the mother.
yes, they can, and they are doing that. That's what they are doing right now. Can you hear me?
There
Hello?
is a question on the comment box. There is a question for you on the comment box.
Okay. What's the question, please? What legal measures exist to protect survivors from being re-traumatized during court proceedings or police interrogation? Okay, so that is why we need to, in this situation, that's why we need to educate, because you have to educate them on how not to make them traumatized in this kind of situation in court proceedings, because it happens a lot. When they come to court, they hear these issues, they don't even, sometimes it even gets to a stage where you're asking them questions and they are lost because the trauma is still there. So in cases like this, they teach them on how to either speak to the survivor, or how to not let them listen to certain. So of course they have to be present to hear the cases, because you have to defend your case if the matter comes to court. But there's a way you speak to them. They teach you, ways on how to actually ask the questions. As a lawyer, you will know you have. Hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, ma'am.
Yes. So as a lawyer, you're being trained. That's why we train. That's why you have to be training. You have to be learning all these things. You learn the skill on how to actually ask these questions so that it doesn't cause more trauma, because it happens a lot. It actually happens a lot. And sometimes they throw caution to the wind, especially the police. They throw caution to, they don't even care. They will even re-traumatize you the more by asking you, questions. You will hear police, sometimes you take a matter to like this to court, and the police will be asking you, how did he use the thing to enter into you? How they are so, sometimes they are so nasty in the way they even ask questions. They don't care. So that's why we need to train them. There's no particular legal measure that is on ground, but what they do is that we train them. They go for all these trainings to learn ways of speaking to the survivors so that it doesn't cause more trauma for them. So that's what happens most times.
Now the second question, please.
Okay, secondly, how long does a rape case that has proof and evidence, how long is a rape case that has proof and evidence supposed to last? So you see, this kind of thing, you cannot really say how long it's supposed to last, especially in our Nigerian courts. Sometimes cases go up to years, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years. There's no particular year that has been, or a period of time that has been stated that this should last. But normally, cases like rape, it shouldn't take long, because if you allow it to take long, you even lose the evidence that you've gotten. You lose it, like in case of maybe forensic evidence, when you're trying to get semen from the girl. You've gotten the semen. If you don't preserve it very well, the semen loses its potency, and you cannot even do the DNA that you are supposed to do. The DNA might not come out properly because you've given time has gone. So there's no particular time that is stipulated, but it's supposed to be done within a reasonable time. Most times, cases like this should be done within a reasonable time. But like I said, we know the country that we are in. Cases last long. That's one of the issues we are even dealing with right now, for cases not to be staying too long in court. But Nigerian factor will always play out. So that's it. Hello? Hello?
Yes, ma. Sorry, another
Yeah.
question. You
Yes.
have an NGO already that is
Yes.
existing and is handling some of these cases.
Yes. But
So, in your work of experience, or maybe let me put it this way, in your NGO, do you have any cases that was presented in the court, but due to maybe lack of evidence, justice was not served? So, how were you able to help those girls, despite the fact that maybe lack of much evidence to show that yes, rape happened or something like that? So how are you able to help those girls despite the fact that the courts did not accept that rape happened?
Okay, so my NGO is a new one. We just started, so we are even still trying to raise it off the ground. So I've not had any case that has gone to court. Right now, I don't go to court generally. I go to court once in a while, but I'm not very active in court. So we have people who handle cases in court for us. But right now, we've not gotten any case that has gone to court. The one that we are currently dealing with now is a rape case, like I said, the one that has to do with the girl who raped the brother raped her. That one, what we are doing right now is we are still trying to even get the evidence that the brother was the one that raped her. We've still not gathered evidence enough because the girl, on one hand, she's saying one thing, on another hand, she's saying another thing. Although she's a minor, she's 12 years old, but her story does not align. Then her parents are also saying different things. So it's difficult for us to even actually penalize the boy or say, okay, yeah, the boy is the one that actually raped her, because the sister is saying because they live in the village, the sister is saying in the village they used to go and play in the stream and boys used to sleep with them. This is her own sister saying it to us. So now, how are we going to actually penalize the boy? And they are in Akwa Ibom. I'm not currently there, so I cannot even handle the case personally. So we are trying to see how FIDA can help arrest this boy and also question him there in Akwa Ibom. So right now, I don't have any case. I've not had any case that has gone to court. The second one that I'm handling, which is the NAPTIP one, is currently in the hands of NAPTIP. The woman only came to me because she feels NAPTIP is not he's not handling the case as fast as she wants it to. But NAPTIP is already the one handling the one that the issue of the man going to court, because they said they filed the case in court. So I'm only going to be working with the lawyer that is going to be handling the case in court, which has not started yet because the court is currently on break. So once the court resumes, we will now start handling that one in court. But for now, I've not handled any case in court, so I cannot really give a specific explanation as to how cases like that go in courts. It's just based on my knowledge of what I read in cases and all of that. So that's what I can give.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, someone's hand is raised. Ghana Daniel, please feel free to ask your question. Hello. Hello.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Sorry, my network was a little bit shaking. Thank you so much for the training. It was indeed an interesting one.
Thank you.
Before I ask my question, I just want to add small to Asia Hassan's question, where she asked what legal measures exist to protect survivors from being re-traumatized during either court proceeding or police interrogation. So I think let me take case management now as an instance, right? As part of your social or psychological first aids, you have to ensure your survivor safety first.
Yes.
So one thing you're supposed to do or ought to do is you avoid triggering words or body gestures that will remind the survivor of the trauma. You understand? If it is rape case, it is advisable you reduce the use of the word rape to the survivor or the body gesture you show while asking or interrogating your survivor.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so my question now is, as part of GBV, gender-based violence perpetrated against women, we have denial of resources and opportunities, right? So I want to know if there's any court acts or any legal action that is related to courts that can be taken upon on such a perpetrator in terms of denial of resources and opportunities perpetrated against women and girls.
Okay. So your question is, sorry, go ahead and go over it again. Your question, the particular question you're asking.
Okay, my question, I said now, as part of GBV now,
right? GBV, gender-based violence perpetrated against women. We
Yes.
have denial of resources and opportunities, right?
Yes. Yes, of course.
So I want to know if there's any legal or any court action that can be taken against such acts, aside from maybe involving police and all these things, as like part of court law. Is there any law that talks about that one? And then actions or penalties that's been attached to it?
Okay, so basically, denial of resources falls under economic abuse, right? So in situations like that, you still have to go to court to let them know that, okay, your resources are being denied. You understand? Once your resources are being denied, you will get if you're going able to prove that your resources are being denied, you definitely get you will get redress if you take them if the matter eventually goes to court. So it still boils down to there's no like I can't really say that there is a particular redress that you will get or action that you will get. But the main thing is that you go to court, you tell them that, oh, this is what's happening. And of course, the court will listen to you and see how to also, help you get what you're actually asking, and, make sure that the resources that are being denied are given and granted back to you. So that's what usually happens. You take the matter to court. If it gets to that stage where you have to take the matter to court, you take it. If you don't want to go to court, you explore options like mediation or arbitration. Let them know that, okay, this is the situation. Your resources are being denied. And of course, they will have a conversation with the person that is denying. If it's your partner, you have a conversation with him and see how you guys or how he can stop denying you. That's if you don't want to take the matter to court. But if you eventually want to take the matter to court, definitely the court would listen to both sides and see how to, give you the redress that you're looking for. So that's what happens most times.
So hello, Barrister Ivy.
Yes, please.
If I get you correctly, can a court of law force a man to fulfill his responsibility towards his wife or spouse, knowing that such a man is not financially viable? One of the things that came out yesterday was that some men who are financially challenged, who do not have job, they transfer their financial aggression or stress on their wives. So is it justifiable to go to court and say, my husband is denying me financial resources? I want to see what's the position of the law. Can you force, or do you have a case like that which has been decided? A lady, her husband was denying her financial resources and she went to court, and the court now says you should give. Is the court not going to look at the financial capability of the man to provide for the house? Then again, another thing that came up is that why do we have African women like waiting for the man to provide for them? Do you get my point? Capacity. What about, is the court not going to look at the capacity of the man to actually make that financial resources available? Yesterday, we have a case of a man, they said it was 60 years, his wife was 60 years, and they retired. They were seeking for divorce, but because of financial hardship. Hello? When we have an IPV yesterday. So I was saying, can the court actually force the man to provide for the wife without taking into account the financial capability of the man himself? So can courts do that?
Yes, so like you said, the court will consider your financial capability. The court cannot force you to do what you can't do you can't give what you don't have. You understand? You have to, it's what you have that the court can consider. So if you have the only time the court can enforce it or force you to do that is if he knows that you can actually provide. Then of course the court will force you to provide maintenance for your family. You understand? But if you do not have the financial capability to do that, the court cannot force you. It even happens in cases of maybe divorce, when a woman takes a man to court for divorce and maintenance. Even though, the court can end up giving orders that, oh, you provide so amount for maintenance. If you do not have, the court cannot force you to do. Highest, what they will do is that maybe if you have properties, they can come and seize your properties to be able to offset that debt or that money that you are not, maintenance you are not providing. But when you do not have anything at all to be able to make that provision, there is no way the court can force you. You understand? The court cannot force you if you do not have. But if you have, of course, the court will enforce it. It will force you to.
Very much.
Yes.
All right. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So, hello, the class. We still have like 7 more minutes. Who has not spoken in this class today? Before it's open, Sarah Isa, have you asked question? Please ask. And if the class is being live streamed on YouTube live, so after this session, you can go and rewatch. And those who are not here for the live class, they can watch the live session. I've shared the link already on the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel. Please, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please do well to subscribe to us. All right. Any question again? All right. If there is no question, then I will ask Ajia Asia to give a vote of thanks on behalf of these cohorts for the brilliant presentation and articulate presentation of Barrister Ivy. And when I asked, I say, how many pages? 50 pages, 50 slides. I say, oh. So that means you have to move the next module to tomorrow. So tomorrow we are going to take a module on gender mainstreaming. Then after gender, thank God that we have done something on Google Form. I'll just go on Canvas straight. Then we go to the last employability, how to write a CV and raise funds for your project. All right, Ajia, Asia, can you unmute and give a vote of thanks on behalf of this class? Then we have the final words from the presenter tonight, Barrister Ivy. All right, you can do that. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. So for Barrister, we really appreciate your time and effort. The laws are much, as you said, we can't go through them, but you really did a good job in summarizing and giving us the important part of it. So if we can get the slide, though you say you send it, we would love it to go through it and like get to know the law more better. So thank you very much. This class was really an interesting one. Thank you for your time and may God bless you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Yes, thank you. It was nice being here.
All right, thank you, everyone. We have come to the end of today's class, and tomorrow again, we do the last one, and we are going to graduate tomorrow. So graduation should be on Saturday. So now we have completed all the classes. Tomorrow is not technical. The only thing we have now is the gender mainstreaming. I'll take that on tomorrow, then go to the technical session. All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, please, before you go off, a case just came to my mind based on that question you asked. So I just want to briefly say it before we leave here. So there's this case called Kafi versus Kafi. And it's a case where a wife sought financial maintenance after the marriage broke down, and the husband obviously opposed the application of the maintenance, claiming that the woman had the means. So because he claimed that the woman had the means, so of course, and he didn't have the means, so of course he cannot provide. And the court held that maintenance is not punitive but compensatory. Do you get? So it is not a way to punish the person. It's to compensate the woman or the other party that is asking for it. Do you understand? But it is only based on what is fair and reasonable. So that's why I was trying to say that the court cannot force you to do what you do not have. If it's not fair and reasonable to do that, the court will not definitely agree to that. So that's what I want to say before we close. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I love that. So the man said the woman has the capacity to stand by herself,
exactly,
finance herself.
Yes.
And the man does not have the man didn't have the capacity to support the woman.
Yes. So because of that, they did not grant the maintenance that she was asking for.
Okay, so that means in course we take into consideration that if you're asking for maintenance, can you actually maintain yourself?
Exactly.
If you can maintain yourself, then you don't need, you have no grant.
Exactly. That is it.
What about child support? What
No,
about child
that
support?
one is compulsory because the child, especially if the child is below 18, child support is compulsory. That one is compulsory. You as the man has to make provisions for that.
Okay. I get it now. So,
exactly.
So support is what's it called? The support for the woman is optional.
Exactly.
It's not political, it's just like compensation.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So your slide, you can share the slide with me on as a big PDF. I'll share with them.
Yes, I'll do that. All
right, thank you so much. This is brilliant, and I hope that very soon, this is your credential will go international. It's on YouTube now. It's on YouTube. I'll share the link with you now after this session. All right, good night, everyone. I'll share the assessment for today on the group. Be sure that you do that. And again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Yeah.